We see it all the time. Somebody's relocating to the Portland metro area. They want to be near downtown Portland, but they're looking for a little bit more of a quiet, laid-back area, a suburban type feel. Beaverton, sometimes Hillsborough really come up on people's radar first, but once they start looking, Tigard becomes a real consideration as well. And in this video, we're going to talk about the cost of living in Tigard, Oregon, from the housing costs, entertainment, your commuting, etc. And all that starts now. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And if this is your first time to the channel living in Oregon, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We've helped so many people relocate to the Portland metro area. As real estate professionals, we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to the Portland area. All right, so let's talk about Tigard, Oregon, and more specifically, the cost of living in Tigard. There's a pretty big range when you look at the Portland metro area and the cost of living in different suburbs, in different towns surrounding Portland proper. Tigard itself flies a little bit under the radar. It's a little bit of a smaller area, a little bit of a smaller suburb when you look at the Portland metro area, but it is directly southwest of Portland. So on the north side of Tigard, you have Portland, southwest Portland bordering Tigard. Just directly north of Tigard, you have Beaverton. On the west side of Tigard, you start to get a little bit rural. You can get out into some wine country a little bit. South of Tigard, you can get into Tualatin and then also into Sherwood. And then east of Tigard, you get into Lake Oswego. So you're surrounded by some really great, really desirable, and relatively high demand areas in Tigard. And again, you also have that pretty quick and easy access to Portland, to downtown Portland. Now that does really depend on where you live in Tigard. Tigard itself is 12 square miles. We'll talk more about that in a little bit as far as what the commuting looks like. The further south and the further west you get in Tigard, you can start to get a little bit buried in some of these neighborhoods. And if you don't have quick, easy access to Highway 99 in particular, or to I-5 on the east side of Tigard, it can take a little bit longer to get out of Tigard. But overall, Tigard is generally considered to be a nice, quiet, laid-back suburb. I think a lot of people that live in Tigard really do enjoy living there. And again, for people who are looking for kind of your classic Portland suburb, they might not know about Tigard when they start their home search, but once they start looking, maybe once they get out to the area and start looking at homes, start looking at areas, Tigard definitely starts to climb people's lists. But again, what does it cost to live in Tigard? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video, the cost of living. Of course, we're going to start with the biggest thing, the housing. And the median sale price right now for a home in Tigard is $595,000. So that's a little bit higher than some areas that you can get in the Portland metro area. That is a little bit lower than some neighboring areas, in particular to the east, like Lake Oswego, and to the south like Tualatin. But it is a little bit more expensive across the board than Beaverton, and a little more expensive than Hillsborough as well. But really, all in all, it's pretty on par with Beaverton and Hillsborough and some of these other west side suburbs. Okay, but how does that actually break out, and what can you get for your dollar depending on whether you're looking for a 3-bedroom home, 4-bedroom home, 5-bedroom condo, attached home? Again, when you look at the median sale price of $595,000, that doesn't necessarily paint the whole picture. So the median sale price right now in Tigard for a 3-bedroom home is $575,000. Now the median sale price for a 4-bedroom home is $700,000. The median sale price for a 5-bedroom home is $795,000. The median sale price for a condo, $312,000, and the median sale price for an attached home, like a townhome typically, is what we would consider to be an attached home, is $455,000. So when you start to break that out a little bit, that doesn't necessarily paint the entire picture, either as far as the age of homes, the square footage, the neighborhood, things like that. But when you start to break this out a little bit, you can get a little bit of a clearer picture where if you're looking for at least 4 bedrooms, you're looking at that median sale price of $700,000, where there are some suburbs, look at Lake Oswego, again, neighboring Tigard to the east. The median sale price for a 4-bedroom home is going to be like $900,000, for example. So there is some discrepancy. That's why we make these videos, to make sure that as you guys are starting to, do some vetting, look at these different areas, what's going to make the most sense in terms of lifestyle, but also what's going to make the most sense in terms of budget. You can start to put some numbers on paper and really get a feel for how far your budget is actually going to get you. All right, next let's talk about the commute, because where you live in the Portland metro area is definitely going to determine how far you're going to be commuting, if you are indeed going to be commuting for work, but even for entertainment, to go see friends, to get out and do some things outside of the Portland metro area, or even around Portland, some of the outdoor stuff like hiking and biking and things like that. So like I mentioned, when you look at Tigard, you're just southwest of Portland city limits. So the kind of the northeast portion of Tigard does actually border Portland city limits. You also have, again, Beaverton to the north, Tualatin and Sherwood to the south, a little bit more rural to the west, and Lake Oswego to the east. So these are all areas where you very well could be commuting to. If you're relocating to the Portland metro area for employment, there's a really good chance that you're going to be working in Beaverton to the north, or potentially Hillsboro to the northwest. Or into Portland, just northeast of Tigard city limits. But all in all, Tigard is one of the closer in suburbs. When you look at the Portland metro area, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Milwaukee on the east side of the river in terms of its proximity to Portland and to Portland city limits. But when you look at, say, if you're going to be traveling to the airport, if you're going to be, traveling by air a lot, for work or otherwise, you're looking at 21 miles to PDX, to the Portland airport. But realistically, that could be at least 45 minutes, even if there's a little bit of light traffic. Now, you're only 10 miles from downtown Portland. Granted, Highway 99, which is a major highway in the Portland metro area, Highway 99 runs right through the middle of Tigard. So there's kind of this northern section of Tigard on the north side of the highway, and the southern section of Tigard on the south side of the highway. So it really does kind of depend on where you live, although Tigard isn't enormous. Again, it's just 12 square miles. But how close you are to Highway 99 probably determines how long those commutes are as far as time, because it can take a lot of time to kind of wind in and out of some of these neighborhoods. And 99 itself, you're looking at driving probably 35, maybe 40 miles an hour most of the way, and you're going to be hitting a lot of stoplights. Highway 99 is notoriously bad in the mornings and in the evenings during these rush hour times where traffic can get really backed up. Again, you're stopping at all these stoplights. You're down to a relatively slow crawl, for a lot of that commute. So although you're 10 miles to downtown Portland, if you're taking Highway 99 up at a busy time of day, that could take easily 30 minutes, to make that drive. So when you look at Tigard on a map, yes, it's pretty close in, but it can take a little bit of time to get up to Portland. You have Beaverton. So from the middle of Tigard to the middle of Beaverton, 6 miles. From the middle of Tigard to the middle of Lake Oswego, 6 miles. And these are going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit easier commutes, because you can take any number of kind of main roads or thoroughfares north or east, north into Beaverton or east into Lake Oswego. You also have in Tigard some business parks, which are primarily on the east side of Tigard, right on I-5. So there's not a ton of residential area right on I-5, right on the freeway, but if you live south of Highway 99 or a little bit east in Tigard, you can get to the freeway pretty easily. And if you can get to I-5 and then up into Portland, that's probably going to be a little bit quicker than taking Highway 99. Public transit does service all of Tigard. So TriMet, the buses, the bus lines in the Portland metro area run all throughout Tigard and at pretty frequent times. So that's certainly going to be an option if you're looking to save on your costs for commuting, your gas costs. There's also the light rail, so you can take the Max line that goes right into downtown Tigard but you would probably be looking at doing like a park and ride. So if you live somewhere in Tigard, you drive into the little downtown Tigard area, you park there, get on the Max line, and you can take it up into Portland or up into Beaverton, for example. So there are some different options as far as commuting if you wanted to save a little bit of money. I don't think when you're looking at distance, you're not traveling a ton of distance. So I think you are saving a little bit on gas there living in Tigard, but your commute times could still be pretty long, in particular when you look at Highway 99. All right, let's talk about entertainment. Your entertainment costs definitely can be a big part of the budget for a lot of people. And I think when you look at Tigard, you have to take into context all of Portland and Portland itself. So like we've talked about in a lot of these other videos, when you talk about being in a suburb and what you're going to be spending money on as far as your entertainment, a lot of it is going to be getting into the city, getting into Portland, going to sporting events, going to, any of the number of events that Portland has throughout the year. Or going to some of these great restaurants and great breweries that they have in Portland, where you're probably going to be spending a little bit more money on average than if you were dining out in Tigard directly. But Tigard itself, does have pretty standard, pretty typical suburban offerings. There's going to be a number of movie theaters. You have at least one bowling alley, Tigard Bowl, which is kind of an old school bowling alley. It's old, hasn't been renovated maybe ever. But if you do go to Tigard Bowl, you have Pizza Caboose right next door, a longtime favorite for birthday parties and things like that. So that's always, always a good combo, the Tigard Bowl and Pizza Caboose. You have a lot of great parks in Tigard too, probably most notably Cook Park, one of the bigger parks in the Portland metro area. It's right on the Tualatin River. So if you're getting into Cook Park, you can go down to the river, bring your kayak, bring your paddleboard. It's a really slow flowing river. It's a really popular thing to do. The park itself too, ton of soccer fields, sports fields, playgrounds, some wooded areas, some walking trails. It's really beautiful. And there's a lot of other great parks in Tigard too, where you can just get out, walk around, walk your dog, go for a jog. A lot of that stuff is obviously free. There's also the Fano Creek Trail that runs through Tigard as well. That's a really popular place to get out and walk around. Again, something that is a little more cost-effective activity. You have golf courses in and around Tigard. There's a farmer's market. There's a theater company. You also have some of the best shopping, probably access to some of the best shopping in all of the Portland metro area. So on the north side of Tigard, you have Washington Square Mall, kind of an OG indoor mall, really big and really kind of thriving too. I mean, it seems like whereas a lot of malls around the country and even around the Portland metro area are kind of dying out a little bit, Washington Square Mall is always, bringing in new businesses. Every spot is filled in there. It's always bustling. It's always busy. There's some great restaurants there too. And then you have Bridgeport Mall, which is an outdoor mall, kind of an open air mall that opened maybe 15 or 20 years ago. A little more upscale, has a little more kind of expensive shops and offerings, but that's just south of Tigard. I think it's probably a Tualatin address, but it's at this section where Lake Oswego, Tualatin, and Tigard converge. So it's right off I-5. But if you're in Tigard, you can get to Bridgeport Village very quick, very easy. Again, great shopping, really great restaurants there. And it has a really nice movie theater, an IMAX movie theater. It's a really popular place to, bring the kids, go check out movies, things like that. So the retail shopping in Tigard, again, in terms of your accessibility to a lot of different great options, great shopping options, probably as good as you can get in the Portland metro area, honestly. So if you like to get out and actually go shopping, Tigard could be a little bit dangerous because there are a lot of opportunities to get out and spend some money. All right, next we'll talk about the age of homes. And really this is always going to be in the context of the size of your lot and how much potential there is for deferred maintenance. So the older your home, the more likelihood there would be that you would need to maybe replace some of the plumbing or do a whole remodel or whatever it may be. There's going to be more opportunity when a home is older to have to invest a lot of money either right out of the gate or, over time incrementally. Also, older homes built, before the 80s and 90s in particular are generally going to have larger lots. And there's a lot of areas around Tigard where you have some pre-50s and some mid-century homes that have kind of the standard fifth of an acre or 10,000 square foot lot, like a quarter acre lot. And so if you have a larger lot, a larger property for your home, you're going to have more yard maintenance. It's going to be more cost associated with the upkeep. Tigard is a pretty wooded area, so you have a lot of trees. You have a lot of fir trees and a lot of deciduous trees too. So you're going to be raking leaves, or you're going to be dealing with issues that come with having these trees in the area, whether it's pine needles or all the little things, pine cones that these trees are dropping. That takes time, money, and effort and energy to maintain that. So when you look at Tigard back in the 70s only had 6,500 people. So prior to the 70s, Tigard was this small town, just southwest of Portland. I think when you look at the northern section of Tigard, you have a little more early development, because really with a lot of metro areas, you start right in the middle at the city center, and the development kind of expands outward over time. So the closer you get to Portland and Tigard, the older developments you have, the further south, the further west, especially in Tigard, the more new developments you have, and not necessarily a ton of new construction, but a lot of development over the past 20, 25, 30 years. But Tigard itself, prior to the 70s, you had a lot of farms, a lot of orchards, things like that, a lot of standalone homes that maybe had 5, 10, 20 acres. So you do get a lot of homes smattered throughout Tigard, and a lot of little communities where you have 100-year-old homes. But that's not going to be as common. I think more likely than not, when you look at the progression of the development of Tigard, you go from 6,500 people in the 70s to 35,000 people in the 90s. That's where the majority of your development is going to take place. And so you're looking at kind of late mid-century into the 80s, into the 90s, as far as a lot of the development in Tigard. So you can definitely get a home that is 40, 50 years old. That would be probably most likely. I think in a lot of areas of Tigard, you see a lot of these neighborhoods have been very well kept. It seems like there is kind of a pride of ownership in a lot of these little communities and developments throughout Tigard. Where you go through where there are some older homes, and a lot of homes in Tigard appear to have been kept up pretty well over the years. So into the 2000s, the population grew to 43,000. To today, it's about 55,000. So you look at in the 70s, 6,500 to 55,000 people today. In the 2020s, I guess we would call it. That's where the majority of the growth has taken place. And there are a ton of neighborhoods in Tigard that are 90s, 2000s developments. But especially when you get further south down Highway 99 and just a little bit north of Highway 99 or a little bit west, you're going to get into this area called Bull Mountain. There's still some development around here. You start to touch the edge of the urban growth boundary a little bit. There are big, nice luxury homes in this area. This is a very desirable, high demand area where your price per square foot can actually go a little bit further too, because you are a little bit more removed, from Portland. The accessibility isn't necessarily as good. You are kind of buried in this area a little bit. The prices do reflect that. So as far as what you can get for your dollar in Bull Mountain, it's typically a really good value, although you're going to be spending a lot more on average. The homes are going to be larger too, so that's a little bit of a trade-off there. So I think when you're looking at Tigard, there's a very good chance that you could be purchasing a home that is going to be at least 25 years old, up to 50 years old, but even 70, 80 years old potentially, but not going to be as common. So depending on the neighborhood that you're looking at, the homes that you find to be interesting or that check a lot of boxes, there's a good chance it's going to be a little bit older. And you might be inheriting a little bit of that deferred maintenance, and that's always something to know and kind of have that expectation going into it. I think there's a pretty good chance in Tigard that when you are purchasing a home, you are going to be getting a lot that is a little bit larger, maybe that quarter acre or even fifth of an acre, where you're going to have some trees, you're going to have some landscaping. That's going to obviously be something that you would need to take into consideration as far as your monthly and quarterly and yearly costs as far as the upkeep there. All right, so let's talk about the property taxes in Tigard. As you may know, there are no sales tax. There's no sales tax in Oregon. There are, of course, property taxes. In Tigard, you are in Washington County. So Washington County is primarily going to make up this west and southwest side of the Portland metro area. Multnomah County is where Portland and Gresham are. And then you have southeast Clackamas County, where you have Milwaukee and Happy Valley and Oregon City and some other places. And when you look at Washington County compared to the rest of the Portland metro area, your property taxes are almost always going to skew a little bit less. Now, there's not just one effective tax rate, and it is a little bit of a complicated formula when you look at how your property tax is calculated, but the effective tax rate, at least kind of on average across the board in Washington County, is about 0.95%, right around that 1% mark. There's definitely going to be opportunities in Tigard to be closer to 1.05 or 1.1%. And when you get your tax bill every year, you can get an itemized list of where your tax dollars are going. So it's broken out into two primary categories. There's education and there's government. And government is going to include the government itself, obviously, but also police, also fire districts, things like that. There's water districts, utility districts, parks districts, development districts. And then, of course, when you look at schools, you're looking at different school districts. And I think you're probably looking at the density of where you live relative to what they can pull in taxes to support the schools in that immediate area, the schools that where you live feed into. So again, it can get a little bit complicated. Really, the biggest thing to know when you look at property taxes in Oregon is that they cannot increase by more than 3% on an annual basis. And property tax records are public record. So we can look this up. If we identify a house that looks interesting, we can look at what the property tax was for the previous year or for the year that we're currently in. We can add 3% and assume that it's not going to be more than that amount. Another thing about Tigard is you do have some areas that are a Tigard address, but they're unincorporated Washington County. So on the north side of Tigard, you have an area called Metzger. And this is where kind of Beaverton, Southwest Portland, and Tigard converge. This is unincorporated Washington County. Most of Bull Mountain as well is unincorporated Washington County. Again, these are areas with a Tigard address and that feed into Tigard School District. There is an assumption that if you're in an unincorporated area where you're not technically in the city limits, that the property taxes are going to be a little bit less. And I think that can be the case sometimes. However, it's not always the case. So I think when you look at an area like Bull Mountain, for example, this is an area that has been really growing and developing over the past 20, 25 years. And there are probably elevated property taxes because of all the infrastructure development that goes into building these new roads and sidewalks and walking trails and parks and things like that to support this nice new community. You also have in these areas elevated patrol by the Washington County Sheriff Department. So, there's still tax dollars going in from your property taxes that go to enhanced patrol, from the Sheriff's Department, where you're not getting the Tigard Police Department patrolling these areas, but you still have the Sheriff's Department. So same with the fire districts as well. So again, we have to really look at this on a case-by-case basis. I think if you're really looking to save on property taxes and you're weighing an area like Tigard or areas in Washington County versus areas in Portland, Southwest Portland, Northwest Portland that are on the west side, not too far, just know that in Multnomah County, your property taxes are almost always going to be substantially higher. Okay, next, let's look at childcare. So childcare is obviously a big monthly expense for people who are using daycares, preschools, full-time childcare, whatever it be. The average cost right now for full-time daycare or childcare in Tigard is $1,000 a month. That is pretty on par with what you see in other areas of the Portland metro area, in particular other areas on the west side and suburbs that are surrounding Tigard. So of course you're going to find opportunities to spend less. Probably not much less than $700 or $800 for full-time a month. I'm sure you could spend $1,200, $1,500 plus a month per child on full-time childcare. There are 109 providers listed online for childcare and full-time childcare in Tigard right now. So there's definitely going to be a lot of options. 109 providers, a population of 55,000 people. There's definitely a lot of options for you to choose from. And in an area like the Portland metro area or any metro area around the country, of course, you're not just limited to your immediate area. Now, if you want childcare that's closer to home, based on those numbers, you're going to be able to find it for sure. But if you commute to, to Beaverton, if you commute to Wilsonville, if you commute into Portland, for work, and it's easier to drop your kids off closer to where you work, you're going to be able to find a lot of options there too. And childcare in Portland or in Beaverton or in Lake Oswego and Wilsonville, whatever it is, might be a little more expensive. So, you're weighing convenience versus cost, of course, with a lot of things, and childcare is no exception, obviously. Okay, last but not least, let's look at the median household income for Tigard, which is $87,000 a year. So that's higher than Portland, higher than Beaverton, not by a ton. It's right on par with Hillsborough. So you're looking at a little bit of a higher median household income, than average around the country. You're looking at really about average or maybe just a notch above average for the Portland metro area. This is an area where, again, there's not a ton of employment. There are business parks, there are employers in Tigard, there are some companies there headquartered in Tigard or that have offices, regional offices. But I would think that a majority of people that live in Tigard don't necessarily work in Tigard, whether they work from home or they do work up in Hillsborough or Beaverton or they work in Portland. Well, back in the office here now, my camera battery died, but I was wrapping up anyway. So if you are thinking about moving to the Portland metro area and Tigard is a place that sounds interesting, you want to learn more about it, or other areas around the Portland metro area, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click that link down below in the description of the video. We can schedule a Zoom call and talk about your timeline, your budget, put together a game plan for you. If this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We really appreciate you watching, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.